Hello, I am Florida native. My name is Leah, and I was thinking to myself, how many people feel guided? I mean, how many people actually feel like there is some type of guidance or they have an inner compass or they actually use their intuition? I think that's a very normal thing to do. I feel, and perhaps I'm wrong, maybe you guys could chime in on this, but I've been on this spiritual path for some time, and I spoke about it in several other videos, but I never really get feedback on the intuition part. And I wondered, how many people really feel that they have this guidance system in place, that they have these maybe spiritual beings, or possibly you want to call it God, your higher self. How many people actually practice that? And you hear it all over. You read books on spiritual guides and your team and talking to your angels, but are you really utilizing what is actually there for you? And I wanted to speak on this because I have this deep knowing that everyone has their spiritual team, whether it be the angels that were promised to you from the very beginning, that have probably been with you all your life. And I realized that in this lifetime I had been ignoring them and not asking for help. And we have to ask, and if it's just in a desire to connect with our spiritual team, let's think about that, and let's pretend for a moment that you can see with your mind's eye, or you could hear guidance, whether it is your higher self, whether you want to call it your angels, whether you want to call it your ancestors. Know that a lot of the times you are protected from certain situations. Let's take, for example, a car accident. How many people have been in car accidents, and I know I have, that have left unscathed, that walked away? Maybe you were hurt. And there's so many people that haven't survived, and I know a few, in more than a few. In my lifetime, I've had several friends pass over that way. And sometimes you wonder, why them, not you? Were you protected? Is there protection every day? And these are the questions that I'd like for you to ask yourself, because there's so much struggle people are going through. There's so much maybe heartache, or conflicts, or disagreements with others, or problems at the workplace, or problems within the family. And I know a lot of us pray, and we pray to God, or we pray about things and send healing energy towards a certain situation. But how many of you actually use your inner guidance? Because you have it. Everyone has inner guidance. And that first baseline is your intuition. And a lot of us at times, and I'm guilty of it myself, have ignored my intuition. I've actually ignored things when I knew in my heart you could feel it. So if you hear these things, you hear the guidance, and you don't listen to it. So then your spiritual team, or your, whatever you want to call your higher self, your spirit guides, God, gives you a feeling, right? Because everything, as I've talked about before, everything is God. There's nothing where God, or this energy of universal love and the creator of everything that animates us, really, that lives inside all of us. There's nothing, there's nowhere God is not. So I just wanted to put that out there and have you think about, like, how much are we utilizing our intuitive gifts? Some people call it gut feelings. I know that a lot of you make decisions on these feelings, these, not just rationalizing it in your head, because a lot of times we could use that too, and part of that can be the intuition. But we're being asked to use that amazing gift of intuition, or our extrasensory gifts that we all are born with. Whether you want to develop that or not, it's your free will to do so. And sometimes we get situations in order to realize that we are more powerful than we thought. You're stronger than you think. And I don't want to minimize that, because I know that people go through difficult situations and they have a lot of challenges and life lessons. But Spirit is saying that how we can navigate that is through using all of our senses to the utmost way we can use it. You could use our physical eyesight. We could use our physical hearing. We could use everything in the physical, but we could also use the things that we can't see. And some of us are able to get guidance, and it can be, some people call it their oversoul. Some people call it, again, your higher self, your spiritual guides, your guardian angels. Some people get direct communication from ascended masters. And if this is not in your wheelhouse, if this is not something you're familiar with, that's okay. Never judging. It's just something to think about. Where are we getting this information to help us make these decisions? I know that I've had decisions to make, and I've been up in my head about it. I'm sure you guys have been there too. And you just have exhausted, the pros and cons of a particular conundrum, right? So you just sleep on it. And then the next day, or maybe and then right when you wake up the next morning, you get your answer, like magic, like aha moment. You have an aha moment, and you know exactly how to move and how to, where to go and what decision you have to make, or you feel led to make. So hopefully this all made sense. I try to encourage people to connect with Spirit and connect with your Creator, connect with your spiritual team, obviously connect with God. I'm here to uplift people and help them learn self-love and self-care, have self-worth, value yourself. I swear I was born with anxiety. And I remember trying to explain to my mom what anxiety was. And I tried to say, okay, so say you're going to get up in front of a room full of people and you're going to speak to a room full of people that you don't know. So my mom's she's never really been in that situation, but I guess that wasn't a good example for her. But I was trying to explain to her that that's what anxiety feels like, that feeling of nervousness, like that underlying nervousness. So I always had that. I've always had that underlying, but I've had to overcome that anxiety. When I was younger, I think I was a little bit more outgoing, and as I aged, I've always had that side where I was quite shy, and people might meet me and think, no way, no way was she shy. That's probably why I drank a lot in college and, to get comfortable. And since then, I'm not a drinker, pretty much at all, but, I worked through why I did drink for a while, and I'm not judging anyone. I mean, I will have a beer, I'll have a glass of wine, I'll have a nice whiskey or scotch, if I feel like I want to have one. But I'm not, in my younger years, I knew that I used drinking to overcome some social anxieties. And I'm at a place right now that I don't need that. kind of, I just outgrew it for myself. Plus, I didn't like how I felt after I drank. And that, again, I'm not knocking anyone who drinks. I have friends and family members that drink. But for me, I knew my reason. And that was a lot of, self-reflection. And so back to what I was telling my mom, I was trying to explain to her. I'm not really sure if she understood. I think she understood it. But she basically said she's never felt that way. So maybe I got it from my dad's side. I don't know. He was actually very extroverted as well. But we all have that introspection. We have that intuition that we can use in our life to help us along as far as making decisions. And the only time I remember the only time that I didn't have that underlying anxiety was when I had my near-death experience. And I'm not sure why my anxiety totally disappeared. I don't know if it was because my body was so clean. In my experience, in my near-death experience, before I went into the hospital, I was very sick, so I hardly kept anything down. I wasn't eating because all my organs were failing, and this was prior to prior to being admitted. These were several months prior to being admitted. I had always been athletic, so it was just a crazy time, So as far as being in that space of all the different things I realized. I realized that I didn't have anxiety. And I don't know if it was being healed, 100% healed. I had mentioned that I felt 100% healed. And at no time during the whole ordeal with my heart, well, my heart was failing, my heart failure, all my lungs were filled with fluid. The whole time, I never, and I'm sure about this, I never was afraid of dying. I never thought I was going to. I felt that I was going to go into the surgery and be back up and, living my life. And I pretty much did. That pretty much is what happened. But I remember during recovery, I went outside and I used to smoke. But I remember them bringing me outside, and one of the nurses it was a smoking area for the medical staff, and this was outside the hospital. I had been in the hospital for a month, and I just want to get some fresh air. And so I think it was my brother-in-law and my sister wheeled me downstairs, and someone was smoking. One of the nurses were smoking. There was just a bunch of people smoking, and I couldn't stand the smell of the cigarettes. So that was really interesting that, like, I couldn't even take it. I needed to go back upstairs. So a lot of things had changed in my body as well. And then I remember, because I wasn't being fed food, I was so swollen up because of my heart failure that they were just giving me ice chips. So you can imagine, I was so thirsty, and I can't remember the reason why, but I wasn't to be given water. They had me on an IV, so I was getting my medicines and whatever they needed to give me through my through a line. But during that time, because I was in the hospital for a month, they were drawing my blood every day, several times a day. All of my veins had been blown, and they had to put a PICC line. I do still have like a little scar. I'm not sure what side it was. I think it was on this side. They had to put a line on my neck because all of my veins were blown from just all the needles that were put in my body. And then during recovery, I remember, they had my chest tube holes, and they were draining my body after the surgery. What I want to talk about, because a lot of things keep on coming up, and the things I remember, I'm like, oh, I remember that, and I remember this. So it's really impossible for me to do one video on my NDE because there was so much that happened. It was during football season, and at that time, I went to the University of Florida. That's the time we had a great football team. I believe it was Steve Spurrier was our football coach. It was back in the late 90s, and we were just this winning college team. And it was during football season, and so there's a lot of excitement, and it was overall a happy time because Gainesville is a very small town except for the students that at that time flooded in, like 40,000 people at the University of Florida students, and then probably another 30,000 students at their community college, which is now a university too, which was Santa Fe. But during the time that I was there, I remember this baby. There was a baby so I had a lot of time alone, but also, if you can imagine, if you work in a hospital, nighttime is a very busy time where they check everything, and they're doing a lot more work on you at night. And it seemed like the nights went on, it was so slow. So I remember a man that was, and I was in ICU. So they had me in ICU. And I remember a baby that I believe his heart was backwards, maybe. And so I could hear the baby, just an infant, that was close by. And again, I don't know how long it feels like I was there like a week. I ended up getting my own room, but and then there was another man I knew, and these were stories also that were told to me because, I was pretty, like I said, I was pretty sick, and I remember someone who was going through dialysis. I remember someone who had actually went to a football game and had alcohol poisoning and ended up at the hospital. So I heard stories of that. So there was, being in the hospital for a month straight from November 18th to December 18th, and this was in 1997. There was so much going on. I had so many visitors. My mom and dad would come in every single day, and they had worked every day except for Sundays. They had a practice in our hometown, so they would sometimes they'd come in before work to visit me, and then they would also come after work, which was like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And in between those times, my brothers and sisters, who also lived in different towns, they weren't living in the college town that I was living in at the time. They would come and visit. So they'd take off of work and come into town and spend as much time, because I was really, really sick with, and again, they were waiting for that time in order for me to get my white blood cell count up. And I'm not a medical professional. My brother and my father's since passed, but they know the lingo, they know the medical terms, they could probably explain it, or they explained a lot of things to me when it was happening. And so I remember very distinctly, I could feel intuitively, I could feel people's emotions, I could feel the worry. And for me, I was not worried at all. I don't know why I wasn't worried, but I wasn't worried. I was pretty relaxed, and I was, I think I was okay with whatever happened. But there wasn't fear. And this was even before my near-death experience. I guess, when you're 25, you think you're invincible and you can't, there is no way that you can die, or you could, pass from this. I guess it was just the state of mind I was in. But, excuse me. Let me get some water real quick. For some of you guys need to drink more water. It's summertime. So let's keep hydrated. Water is a great conduit too. It cleans out the body. It helps me anyway to think better. It helps my throat. So I definitely haven't been drinking enough water, and I've been doing a lot of yard work. So I think I've just been having a lot of, I don't know if it's pollen, probably just the grass and all the things that fly up in the air. So excuse me for 2 seconds. Yeah, so I just want to explain a little bit about if to help you envision what my environment was like. So not only was my family, I'm the last of 7 children, so there's 9 of us in the family, including my mom and dad at that time. My brother, I had one brother that lived in California, so there was the rest of my family, plus, my brother-in-laws at the time. They would visit, and then I had just graduated from college, so I still had all of my core friends from college who were all from that hometown of Gainesville, so they all are from there. So they were visiting on a daily basis. I had so many visitors, especially during the daytime. It was nonstop visitors, plus the medical staff, plus um, all the other patients that were in the hospital at that time. So it was a little chaotic. It felt a little chaotic. So when visitors left and I had that time, and it was usually during the shift, the hour, the 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 changing of the shifts of the nurses, which is like 7 o'clock, 6, 7 o'clock, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, before the nighttime shift came in to do all their tests and poke and prod at me and check me out. And then also it was a teaching hospital, so in the morning I would have sometimes 20 people, soon to be doctors in my room. I'm waking up and I open my eyes and I see a ton of people, doctors and nurses and people, students that were training right in front of me. So I really didn't have a lot of time on my own, but when I did, it was so peaceful. And I remember the television being on, and I'm not a huge, and I wasn't a huge TV watcher, and definitely not the news. And even since then, it's been 27 years, I do not really watch the news, maybe the Weather Channel, but even, and then in the 90s, it was just TV. And I was very sensitive to the negative information because it was crime on TV when they talked about news or, whatever was going on in the world. It was, it was very, for some reason, I wasn't able to, I just couldn't stand it. I even asked the nurse if she could turn off the TV, and then she gave me, I just had the remote control and I kept the TV off. So the times I was alone and I had that moment to myself, it was pure peace and calm. That was the energy in the room. But aside from those maybe 2 or 3 hours, there was always someone visiting, and I'm very grateful for that. But I didn't get a lot of rest during the daytime, and especially at night, because that's when we had our nighttime shift of nurses and doctors that came in. And like I said, it was a very, very, and I'm so grateful, amazing experience. And I know there's not a lot of people that maybe would consider having open heart surgery at the age of 25 to be something they'd want to do. But this was in my plan in life. That was something that I was supposed to experience. I truly believe that. And it was there to wake me up And so perhaps there's something that has happened or that may happen that will give you a spiritual experience, something similar to mine or something small to even wake you up. If you're not already on that path, or if you don't. And what I mean by waking up, I'm not saying everyone's asleep, but there is this, it feels as if you have one foot in this physical realm and it feels like the other foot is in the spiritual realm. And maybe some of you understand what I'm saying, what I'm talking about, that you've possibly experienced this. A lot of this can happen also with traumatic, if someone has undergone some type of trauma. Sometimes you are gifted with a spiritual experience, and I feel it is a gift. I do not regret any of it. Like I said, I feel that everything happened exactly how it was supposed to happen, and I was actually told that. It was a knowing. So I just wanted to share that little little snippet of my NDE. I know I was everywhere with that, but like I said, it's not something I could tell in its entirety in one short video. As I bring the memories back, I remember pieces and parts, and I know it seems so insignificant that the other patients that were in the room, but it was part of my experience, and I wanted to share that. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you guys on the next video. Take care.